Hi folks, welcome back to Math with Captain Rod. I'm making this video here to be the first part of your review for your exam. So the first thing I see on this test are three problems about graphing parabolas. Now first of all, let me talk about kind of parabolas in general, make sure that you're clear about what these things look like. So parabolas come in two types. You have ones that open up or down and ones that open left or right. Equations that are in this general form here open up or down, with if A is positive, they open up, which means, by the way, also that they have a minimum value at the vertex. If A is negative, they open down, and that means that they have a maximum value at the vertex. All right. They sometimes take this mathematical form, like x equals ay squared plus by plus c. These give parabolas that open left or right. When A is positive, they open to the right. They look something like this. When A is negative, they open to the left, so they look more like this. Now, one of the first things, a really important thing to find for a parabola is the ability to find the vertex. That's this point right here. Now, for these vertical guys, there's two ways to do this that we've discussed. Put them in their standard form by completing the square, or by running the x value through the vertex, or the x value of the vertex. I'll put x sub v is given by minus b over 2a. This you get by completing the square on this kind of generic parabola. Now, I know in class mainly I focused on this method, and that's because I think everybody needs more practice with completing the square. On the test, what I'm going to do is one of those you will be forced by doing this to find the vertex. The other ones you'll be allowed to do a method of your choice. Okay, parabolas that are in this form, I recommend the quickest, easiest thing to do is to find the y-coordinate of the vertex, again by minus b over 2a. And then once you find that value, you just sub it in to these places to find the x value. And then pretty much you can sketch it from there. So I'm going to go through an example or two and give you some practice examples to chat about. All right, so these examples I'm about to go through are on page 481. And let's see here. Let's take let's take a look at number 4. I'm just picking one out of the page here. Y equals minus x squared plus 6x minus 5. Now, I'm going to go ahead and talk about doing this like two ways. First, by completing the square. So when you complete the square, you're focusing on this stuff right here and basically ignoring the constant for now. You always want a 1 in front of this x squared term. So the first thing to do maybe is factor that minus sign away from both of these terms very carefully. So if I factor a negative sign out of this, this is what we'd have, minus 6x. Notice that this product gives me the plus 6x. Leave yourself a little space. Put the constant kind of on the right by itself. Next thing you do, take a look at this animal. Right? That's a 6. Cut it in half. That's a 3, and then square it, which is 9. So what I'm going to do is add 9 here. Then you have to maintain equality. That means you have to make an adjustment somewhere else so that you haven't changed things. You got to be very careful here because it looks like I added a plus 9, but don't forget there's this minus sign sitting out in front of the fraction. Boom. So what I really added was minus 9. So let's come out here and put a plus 9. Okay. Now here's the completing the square part. This thing by design now factors into x minus 3, the quantity squared. This value here is always going to be half of this value. That's just mathematically how it works out. And then this is going to be plus 4. All right, so here is the equation of our parabola, and it's in this form. So the vertex is at the point 3, 4. Right, and I'm getting that by comparing the x minus h to the x minus 3. So the h is 3. And then this value is the vertex. All right, so this parabola opens down. It's at the point 3, 4. And then what you can do is come over here and start plotting points. Now on your exam, you're going to have an actual grid here. But 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's the vertex. Now the minus sign. I know this thing opens down, so it's going to look, maybe something like this. You definitely want to know where it crosses this axis here. So let's take that original equation here and get these intercepts. By the way, looking at this equation here, there's a real easy point I can get. If x is 0, y is minus 5. So that's like down here somewhere. So this thing must do something like this. But to get those x-intercepts, we're just going to put a 0 here. And we're going to solve that for x. Okay, I got a feeling this factors. I guess I'll bleed over it here for a moment. I'm going to hit everything with a minus sign to make it a little easier to factor. I don't know, my brain factors these a little easier when we have a minus 1 sitting in front of us. I'm thinking x minus 5, x minus 1, I'm guessing. I think that's going to be right. Yep. Okay, so one of the zeros is x equals 5, the other one's x equals 1. So x equals 1, and then 2, 3, 4, 5. That's pretty well enough. We can sketch this thing. Okay. This parabola is going to look something like this. All right, so that's one approach. Whoops. Now we'll just do this. Big vertex there, 0.34. Now the second approach, right? Put or. The x-coordinate of the vertex we can get by taking minus b over 2a. In this problem, that is going to equal minus 6 over 2 times minus 1, which is going to be, you'll notice this ends up positive 3. Then we can just wash it through the equation here to get the y value. Now, this stuff right here, this minus sign is outside the parentheses. So this is 9 with a minus sign in front of it. That's a negative 9 plus 18 minus 5, which is 4. So the vertex is at the point 3, 4. So you would go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, put your vertex. Now at this point, the problem is identical to what I did over here. You would set y equal to 0, find the intercepts. I already did that. I'm going to go ahead and just put them in there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you would sketch the parabola. So there's an example of sketching a parabola. This one ended up being a vertical example. I'm going to go ahead and do a set this up and do a horizontal one in a minute. Okay, I'm back here, and we're going to go through an example sketching the graph of a parabola. This one's going to be a horizontal example. Anything that's in the form x equals is horizontal. Just some basic observations here. A is 1/2, and B is minus 1, C is 1. This thing's positive, so whatever this parabola is, it opens something like this. We're going to find the vertex here, and I'm going to find it by just calculating the minus b over 2a. So that's going to be minus a minus 1 over 2 times a, which is 1/2. So that's going to be plus 1 over 1. Okay, so the y-coordinate of the vertex is 1. We're then going to sub that in to get the x-coordinate. 1/2 times 1 squared minus 1 plus 1. All right, just running a 1 through this. So this is going to be 1/2 minus 1 plus 1 is 0. So the vertex of this parabola is at the point 1/2, 1. We can start to get our sketch here. Ooh. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, 1/2, 1. Should be actually a little higher, but. All right, now we know it opens to the right, so this thing's going to look something like this. Intercepts. All right, so let's figure out where it crosses the x-axis. We can do that by putting 0 in for y. Very easy to do in this equation here. So putting zeros here and here, we're left with just a 1. So this thing's going to cross the axis at 1, 0. That's probably enough to sketch this. Remember, that's the vertex. It's only got this one intercept. Ooh, that's pretty crummy. Maybe something like this. when you're sketching these, it wouldn't hurt to get one or two other points. You know, like maybe put in 2 for y and get, or I'm sorry, maybe 2 for x and get the pair of y values out to put those there and there. But that's pretty much it. Now, other questions that are on these tests, they ask for the axis of symmetry, and I forgot to do that in the last example. But in this example, the axis of symmetry is this axis right here. The axis of symmetry goes through the vertex. Anytime you've got a horizontal looking, pardon me. Okay, I'm back. My apologies there. Phone rang. So let's see. Horizontal parabolas will have an axis of symmetry that's horizontal. And whether they're horizontal or vertical, the axis of symmetry always goes through the vertex. And the vertex here in this problem is the point 1/2, 1. Anytime the parabola is horizontal, the equation that describes the axis of symmetry will be a y equals type of equation. In this case, y equals 1 is describes the axis of symmetry. Any parabolas that open up or down will have an equation that looks like x equals something or other. So that's probably enough on graphing parabolas. Some good examples to look at on page 481. And these are homework problems that have already been assigned, but you know, if you can do the odds, you know, 1 through 7, you should be good to go. Now remember, one of them I'm going to force and say, please do by completing the square. With the other problems on the test, I'll give you freedom as to how you do them. If you want to keep completing the square, that's fine. If you want to use this, you know, minus b over 2a, which calculates the x or y coordinate of the vertex, that will be fine too on the test. So that's probably enough on graphing parabolas. I'll start making another video here reviewing other concepts. Have a great day.